Take your seats. We have the next session coming up, which is, I hope, really interesting for everybody looking at a whole watershed example of management, both from a watershed and socioeconomic. So come on in. First, I want to ask Jack Schwartz, who's with the Carnegie Museum of Kings County, to come up and tell you about a project that he's implementing, starting, and asking for your assistance. Oh, here, hold on.
Jack Schwartz. I'm the president of the Carnegie Museum of Kings County, and we are a nonprofit. We're all volunteers, and we do themed exhibitions. And we started, for example, in 2021, doing an exhibition on Lemoore Naval Air Station and Kings County athletes and the Marchbank Speedway. Last year, we spent 3 installments in the year celebrating the Portuguese history of the county. This year, we're doing Asian American exhibition. So why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you this because we are curating our 2025 exhibition, and it will be focused on Kings County agriculture. And we are totally dependent on organizations and individuals to come help us curate things and to provide the displays. And one of the big displays that I want to have next year deals with Tulare Lake, both its history in part 1 and the future in part 2. We're also in part 1 going to be looking at, hopefully when Mr. Jeff and I get together, be able to do something with the Tashi tribe in terms of sustainability of how they lived before. We're hoping to also include a lot of pioneer families. I just met yesterday with a pioneer family that has, for example, their original 1881 land grant, and they've been farming their land since the 1880s. So we will have a display about them. But going back to Tulare Lake, okay, we don't reinvent the wheel. We are totally dependent on groups such as this and others who have knowledge of Tulare Lake to help curate our displays, with artifacts, maps, pictures, and whatnot. So I'm here today asking for your support, asking for you to come talk to me. I've got my cards. We don't tell the story. The people who curate, the subject matter curators, tell the story, okay? We just help facilitate everything. We'll also be looking at crop evolutions, and in part 2, for example, we'll be working with community organizations like 4-H and FFA, but we can't do it without help from the community. If it doesn't come in the door, we can't display it. So please see me. I'd love to get your help and organization and support for our exhibition for next year. Thank you. Nope. Yep.
Maybe. Well, all right. So, microphone wins. This next session is near and dear to my heart because it is really the nuts and bolts, the guts of what we hope to accomplish in the Tulare Basin Watershed Partnership, which is a whole watershed approach to solving much of the water supply that we have to work with in the southern basin. And what we have here today is a couple of examples of both from the watershed management, dealing with the upper portions of the watershed, through the mid-elevations down to the valley floor, and the socioeconomics of, let's say, a disadvantaged community of Allensworth So earlier this year, a couple of months ago, I was fortunate enough to attend the Native American Wildlife Society meetings that were held at the Tachi palace, and I learned, much to my surprise, unfortunately, but to my great pleasure to know that the Tule River tribe is in fact implementing and doing much of the work of a whole watershed approach, dealing with wildfire at the upper watersheds in Sequoia groves, and doing meadow restoration, and on the way down the watershed, implementing riparian management and livestock grazing practices, which are having positive benefits for proper functioning condition of riparian areas, streams, meadows, springs. And we in the Deer Creek watershed were just dealing in concepts. And it was just so refreshing to see that the Tule River is doing it on the ground with support from NRCS, with support from the Forest Service at the upper watersheds. And I'm really thrilled that we do have Arnold here today from as a hydrologist from the Tule River tribe and their organizations to tell us and share with us what it is that the tribe's doing as a real, on the ground model of what we have been hoping to see accomplished, in adjacent watersheds. So with that, I'm going to ask that Arnold Trippel come and give us a little bit of an update of what the Tule River tribe is doing in a whole watershed approach.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Arnold Trippel, and the Tule River tribe's hydrologist. To be fully disclosed, I've been here for only 6 months, so.
Oh, I did it again.
No problem. So I've been blessed to be involved in much of the processes as well as restoration that has been going on at the tribe. Some of the bigger things that have been done this year is the Hershey Ranch acquisition, which is happening and being written today, and that's why Ian wasn't able to come because he's out there right now helping facilitate that final transfer of that land back to tribal control. Please, yeah. And so, as of now, the Tule River tribe is around 55,000 acres that consists of the upper watershed for the South Fork Tule River. And there we've done, just this year, we've put in more than 50 structures, in-stream structures through process-based restoration techniques such as beaver dam analogs, directional felling through loggers, intending to create slowing of the water, spreading it, and sinking it to encourage groundwater aquifer recharge in those fractured bedrock systems. And this has all been in conjunction with the 16 beavers that we got and reintroduced onto these lands to help facilitate this awesome ecological change. And I'd also like to have a small little applause right there for that great event. And the biggest players there, Kenneth McDermott, he couldn't be here today, but he's been the main spearhead of that reintroduction effort. He was the previous chairman, as well as Billy Farmer, the Rangeland Compliance Officer, who has been a great help in helping me to put and look at areas where these BDAs need to be set so that we can create basically the conditions necessary for them to come back and them to facilitate and spread into other places. So other than the beavers, other than Hershey's Ranch, we have this wonderful contract with the Forest Service, the TFPA, the Tribal Forestry Protection Act, which is a co-stewardship agreement in which the tribe can do restoration activities such as directional felling, cultural burning on the 10,000 acres that border the upper portion of the tribal reservation. And we're already looking into starting that activities in terms of meadow restoration next year to couple and to grow the structures that we've put into place on tribal reservation land, extend that over to the Forest Service side. And so other than those, we're also looking at entering into a co-stewardship with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for Lake Success. We did a small little field tour of the outfall structure at Lake Success Dam, and we're looking at vegetation management to move some of the tules there to sites on the Tule Reservation to get these important plants back onto the areas that were ripped by the flood in 2023, reintroducing them there, putting them in the ponds at McCarthy Ranch, a trust property or fee property that would be conducive to growing this local population of Tule out there. And so I'm just trying to list as many of the wonderful activities that the tribe has been doing. Ones that I haven't really mentioned is livestock, what we've been doing in the range program. We've been building fences to push out and protect some of the many springs that we have across the reservation. These have also led to spring redevelopment ideas with NRCS, in which we've looked at 6 sites already to begin to put in a new spring box, because as of now, a lot of the damages from the floods and the rains have pulled a lot of the cement structures out of these spring boxes, so they need dire replacement. And we've already begun the process with our own public works crew of around 30 or 40 individuals that have heavy equipment operator training and ability to put grading and excavation of these areas to reinvigorate what was lost from the floods of the past years. And so, yeah, that's all that I have to say for this. And yeah, there's a lot more restoration activities planned for next year, especially extending it to the Hershey's Ranch property, along with beaver and more in-stream structures. And so thank you.
All right, one of my professional endeavors has been looking at livestock grazing as a management tool for San Joaquin Valley, especially endangered plants and animals, as a management tool to provide appropriate management for the structure and composition of our rangelands on the valley floor. So livestock grazing is, and then in the foothills, looking at, again, appropriate management in riparian areas and looking at oak regeneration as, how livestock, again, can serve as a tool for fuels management, fighting fuel reduction. And so today we have Pelayo Alverez from Audubon, who is a specialist in livestock management. It's been a career looking at livestock grazing as a management tool. And so I invite you to share your wisdom.
Thanks, Larry. I actually feel a little bit like I'm crushing the party. My co-workers, Geronimo Castañeda and Taylor Broadhead, are the Audubon staff people that work on the Tulare Basin. Our program is statewide with the Conservation Ranching Program. The program was created in the Midwest. In 2009, Audubon created it trying to stem the loss of grassland birds. We've lost about 3 billion birds since the 1970s. Audubon realized that a lot of the remaining habitat was on privately owned ranches, so they were smart to start engaging with the ranchers in order to protect and enhance bird habitat. They created this certification for beef and bison producers that allows Audubon to engage with them in their management. And the focus is to, again, enhance bird habitat on those ranches. So we write habitat management plans for each individual property and then ask the ranchers to manage for animal health and welfare and then overall environmental sustainability. The idea here is that birds are indicators of rangeland health. So if the birds are present, that means that the ecosystem, that the rangelands are healthy. We say what's good for the birds is good for the herds. So it's been a very successful program. Yes, and I agree. Grazing is a really, really beautiful tool to manage vegetation. That's one of the recommendations that we give our ranchers is to change or manage their grazing in order to provide different rangelands are healthy. We say what's good for the birds is good for the herds. So it's been a very successful program. Yes, and I agree. Grazing is a really beautiful tool to manage vegetation. That's one of the recommendations that we give our ranchers is to change or manage their grazing in order to provide different patches of land so they allow for habitat biodiversity, which is good for birds and good for other wildlife. But I guess I'm also here to advocate for rangelands. When Steve and I started, we go back a ways. But when I thought of this MLRP program, I thought of this as a great opportunity to turn some of the land back to what it was. I'm assuming, I'm going to make big assumptions here, but I'm assuming that some of the land that was converted into croplands were originally rangelands, right? Or native land, we can call it native land. I think this is a great opportunity to again, turn those lands back into what they were. To me, rangelands are the multi-benefit land by definition, because you can grow food, you can grow fuel, you can grow fiber, you can have groundwater recharge, you can sequester carbon, you can provide corridors for wildlife, you can have recreation. So to me, it is the definition of multi-purpose land. So to me, this is a great opportunity and I'd like to explore that with you, is what are the economic models that are going to allow us to turn some of the land back into rangelands? And the other one is maybe, I work with ranchers mostly in the Central Valley. Most of them are hanging on by a thread. I don't know if you know the joke of what's the fastest way to make a little bit of money? Start with a lot of money and buy a ranch. These folks are not making money. They're hanging on by a thread. Their habitat and all the ecosystem services that I mentioned are hanging on by a thread, by their ability and desire to stay on the land. And the more access to more grazing land that we can give them, the more sustainable they're going to be. And again, let's look for those parcels of land in which grazing can be a tool to manage vegetation and to provide all those multiple benefits that we can get. So I'm really excited. Actually came here to learn. I'm not sharing my wisdom, and I've already learned a lot just by listening to Robert in the morning. That's what we want to talk about is collaboration, is all of us is humanity. So I'm really excited about anything that has to do with partnership. So I really appreciate Steve's invitation, because if the word partnership is there, I'd like to be part of it. So thanks for the invitation.
Third on our panel is a little bit different emphasis as one of our speakers and panelists to discuss with you. Tekoah Kadara is with the Allensworth. Gosh, I've been with the BLM too long. And with the Allensworth Progressive Association, and in some of the efforts that in the community is looking at restorative agriculture and bringing up a new generation of agriculturalists in a new way that will be hopefully multi-generational, and helping the community, one of the real disadvantaged communities in the Tulare Basin, move forward with some great support from grants in the state and private organizations. And so we wanted to share with you what Allensworth is doing from a socioeconomic sustainability.
Okay, thank you for that, Larry. Is this afternoon still? Good morning. Well, some of you in this room may know of Nettie Morrison. Some of you may know of Denise Kadara, Coyote Kadara. Well, I happen to be Denise and Coyote's overgrown son. Nettie Morrison is my grandmother, and I'm third generation leadership in Allensworth. I work as the Associate Executive Director of the Allensworth Progressive Association with my counterpart in the back of the room, Ms. Desiree Bagliaos. But to give you some little backstory on Allensworth, I'm sure a lot of you already know quite a bit, so I'll go kind of high level. Allensworth was established in 1908 as the first all-black governed and owned township in California after the Civil War, founded by Lieutenant Colonel Allen Allensworth. The town was built around sustainability, self-reliance, and just to be able to protect themselves from the Jim Crow South, and to be a place of sovereignty for these people. The town thrived. The community made $4,000 to $5,000 a month in that era, which is almost $1 million a month in today's time. So it was a really thriving community. But like other communities of that era, black, brown, and indigenous communities of that era, it was systematically taken down. I come into the picture in the 70s, not necessarily me because I wasn't born in the 70s, but my grandmother moved to Allensworth in the 70s. And she fought off mega dairies, she fought off turkey farms, she fought off sludge treatment facilities. She started a group called the Friends of Allensworth, which is a group that still throws events in Allensworth State Historic Park to this day. With that being said, my mother moved into Allensworth and then took over the spot from my grandmother as the president of the Progressive Association. And she led the charge of getting a community plan unanimously approved by Tulare County, by taking some fundraising dollars and hiring a team to build capacity for this work that we're doing today in Allensworth. And from taking a bank account that had $200 in it to a bank account that had $10 million in it through fundraising, okay? So with that being said, that's what brings me here today. That's what brings this new generation of this work in Allensworth. I've grown up knowing of Allensworth. I've never really lived in Allensworth until recently, but as a frontline community and me growing up in this region, I'm very familiar with a lot of the obstacles. You know, for example, a lot of these rural communities are in food deserts, right? For miles, there's no food. So hopefully, and I got my fingers crossed, you guys pray for me, or pray for Allensworth, but hopefully second quarter next year, we'll be breaking ground on a civic and resiliency center, which will also incorporate a medical center, right? So Allensworth in this food desert, a bottle of water is 15 miles away, okay? And we're bringing in a medical center, we're bringing in a restaurant, we're bringing in a commercial kitchen for a store, we're bringing in office space for the staff, we're bringing in office space for the entrepreneurs in the community. And then also resiliency space, because we all know in this region it's extremely hot and it's extremely cold in the winter. So space for our residents to be able to have some refuge. Another issue in the Central Valley is our youth don't typically have a whole bunch to do. Again, it's so hot and it's so cold. So what Allensworth has done is we've started a youth sports club, or the Allensworth Progressive Association has started an athletics-based learning program, which is helping sponsor our running club. And I will have to take a second and say we have some of the fastest runners in the country at cross country in Allensworth below the age of 10. We have literally, we went to Tallahassee, Florida last year. We have 3 All-Americans in Allensworth, you know, so. So we've created programs around working with our youth and helping develop our youth. Another major issue is our soil quality. You know, it's hard for these local communities to grow food, especially if you're not doing it on an industrial scale. You know, our organic food is Walmart food in Allensworth, you know, 15 miles away, and that's organic, right? So with that being said, we want to grow soil. We have a beginning farm worker training program where we're teaching the next generation of farmers to grow soil. Mother Nature doesn't need fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, all the other sides to grow the forest or to grow any of this food. So we want to mimic Mother Nature in the ways of growing food. Another issue here is water. Okay, Allensworth has the issue of over 300 parts per billion arsenic. State max is 10. Okay, so we're working with Dr. Gatgill at UC Berkeley around some arsenic remediation technology to pull. His technology has shown that it will pull over 300 parts per billion down below 3 parts per billion to make water drinkable. And part of this process, it also kills all bacteria and viruses. So working on bringing these kiosks into Allensworth and other communities like Allensworth, so drinking water is now affordable. Because when you have a community and the majority of the children in the community have silver teeth because of water is more expensive than juice, you know, and malnutrition and things like that, it just doesn't sit well. So we can help fix some of this problem by making water, things like water, just affordable for these communities. I could really go on and on. We have power issues. The power goes off and it shuts off our well. So we're looking at bringing in agrivoltaics, which is working with solar and crop production and things of this nature. So we're trying to kill a lot of birds with one stone. I was told I shouldn't use that analogy. Oops. It slipped, I'm sorry. Wrong audience, huh? Yeah. But I think it's really important that, you know, the group overall is understanding what Allensworth is embarking upon. It's lofty. I tell people I'm a lofty dreamer, but, you know, I work towards making the things that I dream about come to pass, you know. And one of the things that I've always dreamt about is groups like this and us all being in the same room together on one accord, having the same thoughts about how to steward this land properly and how to do it right this time, because for 100 and something years we've done it real bad, right? So how to do it right this time. So for me, it's really important, and I'm really grateful to be here and to be able to share this story and to be able to share some of the things that we're doing in Allensworth. Thank you all very much.
Audubon would say, will you feed 2 birds with 1 seed? That, I will take that one. That's what I'm saying.
So at this, do this.
Oh.
So at this time, it really is, I've got.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep
I'll trade you. Really, it's to open up, to have a discussion with you, with our panelists here, or to have a discussion among us all to try to get some feedback or ideas that can help all of us understand what's happening, you know, in Allensworth, what's happening at the Tule River, what opportunities there are in MLRP for a livestock grazing land use. But so, do you have any questions? Any comments?
Please use the mic.
Quick question about the beavers. So I appreciate the fact that people are seeing that they do help get water back in the ground, high up so it'll come down, it'll be there for future generations. Are there any studies that show where beavers have been taken out of the environment, that the fire, there's an increase in forest fires, or to show that they do in fact create sort of a liquid fire break? It's just another added value to their being in the ecosystem. Do you know about any studies that have looked at that angle?
Okay, I stole the mic.
Sorry.
All right, so myself and 3 other tribal members went to BeaverCon this year in Colorado, Denver. And there they talked plenty about how liquid fire breaks, or how beavers, or even process-based restoration solely can create fire breaks. And the study in particular, I don't remember the professor's name, but there's been several done in Montana as well as Oregon looking at that and essentially justifying the use of both beaver and process restorations for fuel breaks.
I'm not an expert on beavers. I also know the study in Marin County, I believe is the malt was somewhat associated with Marine Agricultural Land Trust, showing that those results when a fire comes through, the areas where beavers are spared from the fire. So I just
Put your skates on. Hello. I think this is a wonderful opportunity with all of us together to make the connections that will help increase our effectiveness. I work on the Tule River kind of in the beginning of the valley floor section. We're doing native plant gardens, and we're doing river corridor improvements and increasing the diversity of the plant life, and so aiding the birds and the other pollinators along the Tule River in that stretch. And then there's the upper Tule River with work in that section, and then you work on the middle of the valley. I think if we find ways to have effective connections between us, we're going to improve our effectiveness. One of the things we might consider is something like a directory or listing of each of our areas of expertise. I really know native plants. I know native plant propagation. I know how to plant and maintain native plants. And though our Tule River Parkway Association is a small environmental nonprofit, we could be of assistance to other people with our area of knowledge. And others could be of assistance in whether it's the Tule River or other waterways to increase our effectiveness. So something like a database or a directory, something like that, might allow us, when we're not in a meeting like this, to connect with each other.
What do I do with this? Do I put it here? Yeah, in the spirit of following up with the comment that was just made, I'm Sonia Sanchez with Self-Help Enterprises, and we work with disadvantaged communities, and we're working right now with Allensworth on the multi-benefit land repurposing program. There is an opportunity for a project in Allensworth that we're really excited to explore. And so I just wanted to put this out there because with the multi-benefit land repurposing program, we need growers to repurpose land, and that's voluntary, right? And so right now what we're struggling with a little bit is finding growers around Allensworth that would be open to selling some land to the community. There is an opportunity for that so that we can have a project with the community of Allensworth. So if there are any folks here that can help us with that, or that are interested in learning more to explore about the multi-benefit land repurposing program, we would welcome that, because this is an opportunity to really get that change in these communities and bring those benefits that Tekoah spoke about to the community. So happy to share more, but just wanted to throw that out there if anyone is interested and willing to learn more.
So, Tekoah, I realize you didn't have enough time to go into all the history. One of the things, Colonel Allensworth was part of the Buffalo Soldiers. Buffalo Soldiers also had one of the first major bike rides to get from, I think it was like the Midwest on out as they were going to Yosemite to do their stay up there. My last job, I worked a lot with recreational groups, including bicycle riders and all. And so one of the things, and we talked about a little bit on the Tule and some of the things that the tribe is doing for recreational purposes. You talked about the youth recreation. With bike paths, we have a tendency to be able to tie riparian zones because bike paths along riparian zones get used. You guys have not too far from you Kern Wildlife Refuge, Pixley Wildlife Refuge, some state lands and other things. What do you think about a big old connection that's both ecological but also outdoor recreation that can join a lot of this stuff together?
Wonderful question. We're actually in the process of working with my brother Robert in the back and the Tachi Yoga tribe with the trail. You know, a trail that will go from Allensworth State Historic Park out to Atwell Island, to Allensworth State Cemetery, Historic Cemetery. So yeah, that's already in conversation, and I think that would be amazing as well. Did you guys hear me? Do I need this thing?
I need this one.
Oh, my bad. Okay, my bad, man. Do I gotta answer it again?
Thank you, gentlemen. To put it to the group, if I could get each of you to talk briefly about one important partnership that you feel has helped you to succeed in a project that maybe was either of your own devising or maybe you were the partner that was brought in to help bring something to life. That'd be cool to hear.
Oh, I can start. For us, is a partnership with the Resource Conservation Districts, and you're going to hear from Nancy later. But that organization, the RCDs, to me, are where the rubber meets the road in terms of conservation, particularly on private lands. They're to me the hubs where all this activity happens. They have partnership in their genetic material. They know the local conditions, the local ecology, the local politics and policies, local environment, and so they're the best organization to get things started. So always our default is when someone comes, like a rancher or someone's like, I'm here in Kings County interested in oak regeneration, like, have you talked to your RCD? That's like our default. But we do have a partnership in which we train them on how on how to write habitat management plans. So now they are, if a rancher in a particular county comes interested in our program, the first thing we do is contact the local RCD, they write a habitat management plan for them, and so they're kind of like our on the ground partner. California is a really big and diverse state, and there's no way an organization, unless you start hiring, hundreds of people, but you have the RCDs that are local, and they understand everything that's there. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to hire more staff. Talk to the RCDs.
All right, so there are a lot of partners that I just want to mention. So U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, NRCS with the EQIP contract, CDFW, OAC, and Kevin Swift for the beavers. The one that I want to highlight that hasn't really been discussed is how the United States Forest Service has been crucial in getting more cultural burning done on Alder Creek, on Soldier Meadow, all these other creeks. Like, cultural burning is a fairly important thing, a topic that just needs to be discussed so that we can maybe move down to the areas down lower, like private lands and BLM land, to start growing this initiative. And I just wanted to put a plug in, but talk about that here. So thank you all.
Any other questions?
Hey, you keep forgetting about me, man. Just kidding. Oh, yeah. I would say partnerships with the tribe We're really looking to working with the tribe, and they're really crucial to the projects that we have moving forward, and just being able to work together. Partnerships with groups like Barbara, 30 by 30, and all these different groups that we're working with, self-help. I mean, I can just look around the room and pick out people that we're working with that are helping our cause and helping us move in the right direction. So for me, it's really all about just togetherness, putting this together, working together. So.
I would like to say that one of the reasons we can convene today, and we're asking so many people who graciously came and spent your time, is this Tulare Basin Watershed Partnership, sometimes called the network. That's one of our primary purposes, is to try to link people together through our website, through meetings like this, get people familiar with what other people are doing in the basin. That's the state of the basin. And so, I encourage you to make contact. We will step up and do our part using the contacts from today to try to keep this momentum going, so that there is a network of people and organizations that are working to improve the conditions, sustainability, the water issues that we're facing here in the Tulare Basin. So just with that, to thank you all for being here, because we wanted to connect all of you together, and we still have several sessions that'll allow that to happen, hopefully organically, because we all have the same need. So with that, more questions, more comments on this session?
So using the watershed model, there's also another term called food shed. So I'm wondering if all three of you ever thought that, right, we're not only connected by water, but cattle as well. And the traditional practices of the indigenous peoples weren't just to stay in one place all the time, but to move with the seasons. Then when the ranching communities came in, they used to ranch the lowlands and then follow that green wave all the way up into the forest meadows. So can you speak a little bit to the future of maybe reconnecting these communities to re-engage these economic systems, to take advantage of the growing periods when they're peak in the valley floor to the foothills to the Sierras?
So yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, our program is rather innovative in the sense that it brings food to the conversation about conservation, which has been, those two conversations have been apart, right? Either you talk about food or you talk about conservation. And to me, I grew up in Europe, so to me, those two things the two conversations need to come together, so that's great. Going back to Catherine, another way, a really good way to bring people together is with food. So I would encourage you to not only get contact from the people who are interested in this partnership, but actually take a man on the land and feed him a meal. And when you do that, it's just magic. The things happen. It seems like a simple thing to do, but we don't do that anymore. The reason why we're disconnected, the forests, the rangelands, and the communities, is because we don't know that each other exists, and we don't know that each other are human beings, because we don't connect. So yeah, I agree that. The other one is birds. So I found that birds are a good connector. People immediately get it. Yeah, I get it. I like birds. Like ranchers love birds. They see them all the time. So they're to find these ways of connecting us. The other one is water, right? Water. I did some environmental education with the Latino community on near Puda Creek, and these kids don't have this concept of a watershed. So we complain that kids don't know where their food comes from. Very few people in the state of California knows where our water comes from or understands how it flows. So yeah, those things that connect us are I think what grounds should run this conversation. I'll pass it on.
Yeah, thank you to everybody. I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on the beaver, where you plan on getting more beaver to augment the population. And also, could you elaborate on cultural burning and how that, the benefits of cultural burning? Thank you.
Sure, so to start with beavers, there have been 3 sites in the upper watershed where we've released a total of 16 beavers, and this has been in partnership with CDFW. All these beavers were nuisance beavers from areas such as Los Baños that were removed and needed a new home. So CDFW, as well as the tribe, and OACC and Kevin Swift, they all got together and started looking at options to rehome these beavers. So we started off by using process-based restoration to put these human-made beaver dam analogs to start ponding up water, to start creating conditions for them to come back to a new home. And so that's kind of a brief summary of what's happened. We're looking to continue to search for more places to introduce more beavers, especially at the Hershey Ranch property. As those already have a lot of pond and plug areas that have lots of water for them to use for escape routes, as predation has been something that we have been tackling. Then into cultural burning. So this has been a whole community-wide effort. William Garfield, the tribal liaison for the Forest Service, has been crucial into coordinating efforts with the Forest Service as well as I believe the tribe's wildland fire capabilities, Zane Santos, and coordinating that efforts to do those cultural burning activities, which is essentially, a lot of people like to describe it as pile burning, but it's its own special bin of activity. And so what really happens is, because we need to see this as, we need to like group cultural burning, for whatever reason, it gets into some red tape when it doesn't really need to have any red tape around it, as this is just a low fire, and I'm sure Robert or anyone else can describe this better than me, but from what I've seen, it's just a low fire that's been mixed in with ashes. It's a ceremonial event is what I've been viewing. And because of that, it shouldn't have all this regulation tied to it. It shouldn't be looked at as a pile burning exercise when it's in its own light, its own unique thing. So that's the discussions that still need to happen. That's amongst all the agencies, essentially.
Yeah, I have a question here, and I think this kind of follows up on one of the other people who had asked the question about the food shed. And this is sort of directed at all 3 of you, and it's a contentious topic, so I'd like you to answer to the best of your ability. So all these things that we hear about, you know, the restoration, the beavers, the cultural burning, the MLRP, all of them require, to some extent, flexibility or innovations in the notion and the operationalization of property rights. Where do you see this currently, and how would you like these innovations to play out? Because it is a touchy topic, you know. I mean, you have people who are like, oh, we need to set those in stone, but then to go forward and to actually adapt to changing conditions, wouldn't it be better to have flexibility and multiple uses of the land and, you know, property rights, essentially how the land is used or governed?
It's $1 million question. I work with ranchers who are managing private land and producing a lot of public goods. All those ecosystem services are public goods. So I teach at American River College occasionally, and I ask the students who owns the wildlife in the state of California, Robert alluded to it, who owns the water? We all do, right? These are public goods that our private landowners are producing. So it's a political and socioeconomic conundrum. But to me, more than, well, a couple of things. With property rights come responsibilities. And the other one is, to me, where I would like to see the innovation is in the incentives. What are the how can we make a multi-benefit piece of land economical? That is a good business proposition to the landowner. I think that's where the innovation. I think we know enough about the biology. We know enough about restoration. We know enough about how to build soil, but we don't know how we can incentivize. Again, because the reason why the San Joaquin Valley looks the way it looks, there are good reasons, right? So can we? And I think a lot to do with economics and where the incentives are. So if again, the innovation should be on the incentives. That's what I would like to see the innovation. We have with regulation, you create a threshold of like, you can go past this threshold of Endangered Species Act or Clean Water Act, but we haven't talked about, okay, what if a private landowner wants to grow endangered species like tiger salamanders or tricolored blackbirds? There are no incentives for that, right? So that's where I'd like to see the innovation. I don't know if I answered your question, but to me, it's a conundrum. Again, private land producing public goods. I'm not an economist.
Can I get that? Sorry to ask this, but could you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. The question was, given that property rights is a touchy topic, what kind of innovations or flexibility would you like to see to accomplish all of the goals that you have stated?
Okay, so that's with policy and everything that occurs, just better MOUs or easier, like categorical exclusions to clear some of this work that we're doing. And that's just my main ask right there. So.
Yeah.
Getting pretty good.
Yeah, man. In the community of Allensworth, we're looking at community land trust or purpose land trust for community ownership. We want the community to own all of the projects and to be the main beneficiary of all of the projects that we're working on currently in Allensworth. So that's how we're looking at tackling that.
I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about the Hershey Ranch project. And I know lots of people in the room are familiar with it, but I think some may not be, and I want to make sure that everybody understands the magnitude of this and how important it is for both the tribe and for our whole region.
So I wish I could give you more details, as it's mainly been other people involved more closely to the process. But I can tell you that there has been a lot of ongoing cooperation with even the Natural Conservation Board to get a lot of the wildlife there collared, as well as to look into more efforts such as getting beaver in those ponds. But the magnitude that I can speak to is it's a couple thousand acres on the Deer Creek watershed, something that will be extending and is adjacent to the current reservation boundary. So getting that back in tribal possession is a major achievement. And that's about all I can share.
So I would like to go back to the question about incentives on private land. And really the NRCS, the EQIP program, trying to educate and work with ranchers, landowners as to what's proper functioning condition of streams and riparian areas. What's the forage benefits for them? How can you keep the water on the land longer so that you get bank first infiltration along your streams for prolonged runoff through the season? And, good management practices, but, finding landowners, ranchers that are experienced and willing to try some things differently than the way they've grazed their property, how to promote and protect the riparian areas as a resource that benefits them, that as far as forage production and as well as water storage and just habitat quality. I think that the tools are there. The USDA, the NRCS is in the business of helping landowners and on private range lands get those benefits and try to improve their business model for those benefits. So anyway, just my thoughts on that.
Your comment made me think of the sometimes innovating is going back to the past and the things that have worked in the past. There's one example. I don't know if any of you is familiar with what happened with the city of New York and the Catskills watershed. If you Google Catskills watershed, the city of New York was the water comes from two watersheds. I believe it's Catskills and Delaware. The Delaware watershed was being developed, being chopped up in these ranchettes and people building big houses and fences and roads and all that. And so the water quality were really going down, was really degrading. So there's this one engineer thought of this idea of protecting the Catskills watershed, so buying conservation easements in the Catskills watershed to protect the water supply to the city of New York. So they started a land trust, basically, which started with conservation easements and then they moved on to conservation practices. It's a very successful model, and for the life of me, I don't understand why this model has not been replicated anywhere else. It's the concept of connecting stewardship in the upper watershed to the consumer. There's several examples of this. Denver, I believe, has this program called Forest to Faucets, and they actually now started a program that is called Forage to Faucets. So again, connecting land management in the upper watersheds to the beneficiaries of that clean and abundant water. Those are the connections that we need to make. This may be a perfect watershed to test that idea of those folks who need the water, farmers, the public, everybody, the schools. How can we connect them with what's happening in how the land is managed throughout the watershed?
So one thing I wanted to speak to is the process of getting beaver dam analogs inputted onto the landscape. It involves it's more involved than just putting the wood structures on there. You need 106 clearance from archaeology. You need a nationwide permit from the Army Corps of Engineers it's nationwide permit 27 to clear that kind of work. And for NRCS, the payment or the cost share for those BDA structures are not a lot for the work that is needed for them. And so maybe by me mentioning this can be reevaluated and putting more incentive, putting a higher cost share, because they only do the linear foot of how long that structure is from the width rather than maybe the number, or just it doesn't match correctly with the work needed to put it in the ground. So maybe looking, if we had NRCS representatives here, reevaluating that and adjusting it on the California side of things.
Other questions? Go ahead. Can you ask questions?
Yeah, this question is more for Mr. Kadara. I was just wondering if any of the SDA loans from the FSA are part of the part of the toolkit that you are using to get more community ownership of local land. And for those of you who aren't familiar with those acronyms, FSA, the Farm Service Agency from the USDA, and they have SDA loans out for, and SDA meaning socially disadvantaged communities, or yeah. So I was wondering if that was part of the toolkit that part of a tool in your toolkit that you have to develop that ownership of those local lands.
As of right now, I don't think that's part of our toolkit. You know, I'm not an expert on that one. My partner in the back, Desiree, would be the best to answer that question. But the majority of our funding and what we're able to use came by way of the California Legislative Black Caucus through Governor Newsom's budget in 2022. You know, so that's where the majority of our funding came from to move a lot of this forward. We have gotten some funding through CDFA for our Beginning Farmer Farm Worker Training Program and such, but the majority of the funding came by way of Governor Newsom's budget for us to tackle these tasks. Cool. Thank you.
I want to ask, is it Rosa? Right, your name? Yeah. Sonia, sorry. And then Tekoah as well. If you're considering animal agriculture or livestock for both building soils and for your farming operations. That's, that's one of the, not even grazing, just livestock. I mean, livestock integration is one of the tenets of regenerative agriculture. You know, if you think of a farm 50, 100 years ago, they used to have, you know, animals and crops were just grown together, right? So bringing that back is also a good opportunity.
Yeah. To answer that, we will have, you talking to you. You're talking to your chest. I'm sorry, I'm a little goofy, guys. But we will have livestock. We plan on raising rabbits. We plan on raising rabbits for meat, pelts, and manure, you know, so. And then doing a vermiculture, so putting all that together.
Right. Steve, do we know whether lunch is done here? Laying it out. Okay, so we have time for some more. Any other comments, questions?
I don't need a microphone. Just quickly, is there any sort of like a database for cultural burns and the laws around them? I know it's all very early in the ballgame, but I worked on a farm that had tules. Native people wanted to harvest them for cultural reasons. One of the first questions we would get from, you know, either CAL FIRE or, you know, air people is, well, do they own the property? And it seemed to me that was just sort of misguided. Is there a database for what is permittable and what is not with regard to cultural burns? Because the farmer themselves could not get a permit to burn. However, because Native people wanted to harvest the tules, they wanted to burn, and it seemed like just you know, going round and round with all these different agencies. Is there an authoritative database on what is and what is not permissible regarding cultural burns?
So I am not sure on that.
Thank you.
I have also another thing I thought about when thinking about innovation is not only the incentives but on the risk. So if we, for example, there was a comment about cover crops. If we want to change the way private landowners manage their land, one thing is our incentives, but the other one is risk. The risk of changing the way they used to farm or ranch. If we as a society decide it's a good idea to compensate or mitigate that risk and say, so if someone gets a cover crop, we have the NRCS paying for the cover crop. But if the cover crop fails, there's no compensation, there's no payment. Maybe we can be innovative in terms of can we try to manage the risk of those landowners who want to do things differently? I'm just throwing that out there. Insurance, I don't know, loans, whatever it is, it's just managing that risk. I think it's also important. We can just ask them, okay, yeah, change your practices, and we'll give you a pat on the back. There has to be the incentive, the market, but also the risk. It's like, to me, managing their risk, it's key.
Real quick, to Pelayo's point, cover cropping, it's being touted as a great conservation tool, and landowners are being made to understand through education from local RCDs and the NRCS that there are valuable benefits to that. But at the same time, we have GSAs using evapotranspiration models, and farmers are being penalized for the evapotranspiration coming off of cover crops when it comes time to calculate their ET and their annual water use. So talking about partnerships, like getting the high-level agency people to work together to solve these problems and reduce the risks for landowners associated with taking on these changing practices is really important.
I'm going to counteract that just a little bit, because the GSAs are working with the landowners to not count ET against them when they are participating in a certified land fallowing program. So they are recognizing that is important.
Like in the middle of pistachio orchard, it increases ET on the actively productive land. Those they're not subtracting cover crop from the overall ET of the crop.
The cover crop in an existing orchard. Okay, I'm talking about fallow land that does a cover crop.
In reference to ET, let's don't forget it takes wet soil and vegetation to create ET. So you can't, in southern part of San Joaquin Valley, we've had a lot of failure in cover crops just because of our irrigation technology of drip irrigation to economize and make our efficiencies so well that you don't get any water in those centers. And here we are the 20th of November, and we haven't had enough rain really to germinate cover crop without any supplemental irrigation to get it established and growing. So there's some very significant limitations to cover crops as just a silver bullet.
Can I step by the map here? I just thought I would respond a little bit to the question Logan answered earlier about the importance of Hershey Ranch over here, because I've worked with Larry for years on the Sequoias to the Sloughs idea. Not all of you are real familiar with that idea, but imagine when Greg talked today about connecting Kern and Pixie Refuge and having water to be part of the connection down there. To me, that is a wonderful beginning because that's right down here. But in the whole watershed approach, it's so wonderful to be hearing what you're talking about on the Tule, and to know that there's now, that private land that sort of was in a way, was sort of the break in the connection between Forest Service, Park Service, Tule River Indian Reservation, and then all this private land down here. Hershey Ranch sort of ties those together. And when I hear, people bringing up ideas like John talking about bike trails and so on, one of the ideas behind the Sequoias to the Sloughs is that it's meant to benefit everybody. When I hear Robert talking about, us, our people, yes, it's meant to be for everybody in the valley, wherever you live. If you want to go and do recreation, how wonderful would that be to have that kind of connection, and all the other living things that are part of that us come into that as well. So when I heard about the work that Barbara and Gary and the folks did with helping to get that Hershey Ranch connected that was like, oh my God, we've been waiting so long for that wonderful thing of 14,000 acres. I mean, they can have Tule elk, and that maybe will make it so the wolves quit eating their beavers and feed on the stuff they're supposed to be eating up there. So.
Can you point out exactly where the ranch is?
Barbara, I'm going to probably goof this up, but my sense is that if you know where California Hot Springs is, isn't Hershey Ranch kind of right in here? Yeah. Okay.
All right, well, is lunch ready out there? Okay, I don't know about you guys' stomachs are grumbling, but we're a lot of growling. Anyway, let's please give a round of applause. Guys that are participating in the conversations, and we will break and see you after lunch. Yeah.